So my talk for today is called A World That Works for Everyone. But first, a joke. If you think that you're smarter than the generation before you, 50 years ago, a car manual would tell you how to change the spark plugs. Today, it says don't drink the contents of the battery. So today, I'm going to be talking about perspective. And I'll tell you, for starters, I'm going to give you what my perspective was at the beginning of the week and how much it has changed during the week. In the beginning of the week, I was thinking, what is wrong with all these people who can't see the truth about Trump? How can I get them to understand? I know someday they'll wake up and understand. That's how I was feeling at the beginning of the week, that this was about the healing of our countrymen, getting rid of Trump, and all these people waking up to the truth of what it is our country really needs. But then I started looking at the results. And what I noticed is 70 million people disagreed with my point of view on things. Not just a few. Not even just, a couple of thousand. More people voted for Donald Trump, who lost this election, than anybody who has ever won the election. And I just looked at that and I said, I need a new perspective here. If I want a world that works for everyone, I need to understand the perspective of those who look at this so differently than myself. Alan and I used to meet all the time, and we would consistently try to open the other person to their, I try to open Alan up to my point of view. Alan would try to open me up to his point of view. We'd send each other reading materials. We even spent some time listening to each other's radio stations. I listened to conservative radio. He listened to PBS. So we were trying to understand each other's point of view. But I think in the end, we were pretty much left with the point of view we started with. I never agreed with Hillary Clinton when she said those supporting Trump are a basket full of despicables. Talk about a divisive comment, something to split us up. If we want a world that works for everyone, it becomes imperative that we are able to see the other person's view. Now, things I'm saying here may sound political, but I am not looking at this from a political point of view at all. I'm looking at it from a point of view of I want a world that works for everyone. That's what I want. And to do so, I have to understand and have empathy for and figure out how to include all those who think so differently than myself. Somebody on Facebook put on, I had no idea that half the country thought so differently than me. And I'm one of those too. I was sure this was going to be a blowout election. I was positive of it. And now that it wasn't, I put up a post on the minister's listserv saying, I was going to talk about this Sunday. What are you guys going to talk about this Sunday? Well, one minister, instead of posting, and one of the things I'm talking about is that it was actually a close election. Well, instead of somebody posting what they're going to talk about, which is what I asked, they wanted to argue with me about how it wasn't a close election. That's a minister. And so I'm thinking, if a minister's going to argue about whether it's close or not, how many of us are still in a headset that there's some sort of mandate here, that there's some sort of blue wave happening? There's no blue wave happening here. The Democrats did not win the Senate, and they lost seats in the House. Again, I'm not bringing that up to be political. I'm bringing it up to say, if we want a world that works for everyone, it's really important to notice that there were things going on for a tremendous amount of people in our country that we are not somehow seeing or relating to. Now, the truth for me is, every time I hear Representative Cortez speak, to me, she incites to riot as much as our president does. That those are the two ends of the coin, the way I see it. But how I see it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is what we can do, as Trish brought up, to begin the healing. And in my mind, to begin the healing, we got to really understand what these other people are thinking about who don't think like us. We got to include them. You know, there was a time when our organization was two organizations, that things got so divisive within our organization that it actually broke into two. A teaching that professes there's only one broke into two organizations. It broke Dr. Holmes' heart, and many think that's what ultimately killed him. The lack of understanding and the lack of willingness to work it out was so divisive it broke our organization into two. But ultimately, there were those who said, wait a minute, this isn't right. This isn't what we came here to do. We came here to be one. And so they got together and started asking each other, what is it that separates us? They didn't just ask, what is it that we have the same? They wanted to know. They were curious and began understanding what it was that was separating, and saw where they could come together and make compromise and work things out. And I think that's what the American people want more than anything. I think when I look at the votes to the Senate and to the House, what I see is a nation that actually wants us to work together. Democrats and Republicans to work together. To work things out the way we did in our organization. Now, because we were able to do that in our organization, and even after we did it, which is now like 6 or 7 years ago, it's been a while, there are still disagreements. There are still those who are trying to say, no, we can't get along. I actually know some ministers who are still talking about what a bad idea it was to come together. But those are outliers at this point. And in every group, there's going to be outliers. You know, in a world that works for everyone, some folks got to move more towards the center. And it's up to us to make that kind of stand. Now, I have some pretty strong views about the progressive way of things that I would like to see our country going. Alan had some very strong views about the conservative ways in which he'd like to see the country going. We see each other as incredibly intelligent and good people. So we look at each other and go, there must be ways of having common ground to have all of this work. And when I look at Alan and I see how him and I were so different politically and yet so similar as spiritual beings, I know that must be true for our nation. I want to hear more now than I ever have before of what these 70 million people have to say about what will ultimately work for our country. There's too many people in our country who feel disenfranchised on the left and on the right. Too many. And if we want a world that works for everyone, we need to open our eyes and gain a different perspective than the one we have now. Now, amongst everybody I'm talking to here, Alan may not be the only one on that side of the coin, and that's great. I want to hear from you. I want to know. I want to feel what it is you feel, because I want a world that works for everyone. I commit myself, and I encourage you to commit yourself. If you truly believe in healing, if you truly believe in a world that works for everyone, to gain a deeper perspective of what the other side, of whatever side you're on, if you're on the side of the Republican conservative, if you're on the side of Democrat progressive, whatever side you're on, take the time to learn more, because there's a lot of people on the other side. I'm not talking about getting the perspective of the outliers, because they're going to be on both ends. My screen goes to here. I'm trying to. We need a perspective that will truly allow for healing. We need to be able to compromise in a way that truly brings us together. It is said on the internet, I see it all the time, that racism is not a political issue. It's a human issue. And I totally agree with that. And so politicizing racism to thinking it's part of the political discussion at all pulls it out of the true discussion that it is. If there's any mandate that was settled in this election, it is that we do believe in character. But there's a reason why none of the progressives to further on the left even got into the game. It got into the final shell. That the person who's actually stood up is one who speaks to the healing and who wants to speak with Republicans, who wants to speak to those who disagree with him, who wants to see diversity. And diversity can't just be in color. It has to be in political narrative, policy, or else it's not diversity, or else it doesn't include everyone. And when I say everyone, I want to once again say I am not talking about the outliers. They're the ones who got to shift more to the center. I leave that to them, to be angry on both sides of that coin or to join the rest of us in our healing. And that's what I encourage all of you for now. Just as Trish said, it's time to stop the anger. It's time to stop the fighting that has pulled us apart as a country. It's time to stop being so sure you're right. Because none of us are. None of us are right. There's two, you can either be right or you can be happy. Have you ever heard that saying before? It doesn't just work in personal relationships. It works on this level too. You know, my wife and I disagree on a lot of stuff. And we're both very hard-headed people. Maybe you didn't notice that about us. We're very hard-headed people. But we agree on some basic, real important facts. Like, we love being together. We want it to work out. We want to be happy together. And we want a relationship that thrives. And so, at our worst, we never cross the line of forgetting those pieces about what we want together. And it keeps us together, and it helps us grow as a couple. I believe those same values will work to help us grow as a nation. We are the United States of America. One public for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are one country. And if we hold that as the highest value, then we will find a way, as hard as it may look at the moment, we will find a way to come together as a nation. And until we do, how do we even begin to address a world that works for everyone, when so far we haven't fully addressed a nation that works for everyone? So this is our starting point in terms of healing. This is what we need to grow, to become more. I believe in the vision of our movement, of our organization. We came together, we were two, and now we're one. And we continue to work out those differences. And we continue, they talk about the ODM, which is the operating manual for our organization, as a living document that is constantly in motion and evolving to bigger and better ways of the organization, of all of us who are part of this organization, thriving. There's a lot of disenfranchised people out there who are not thriving. This vote shows that. And so they need to be heard. What will it take for them to thrive? If you're one of the folks who are thriving, then listen to those who aren't. Don't just throw them off as, oh, they're not, it's their mindset. It's this, it's that. No. We need to listen. We need to open up our perspective to something larger. Anyone who's closed on either end of the coin, those who are upset about Trump losing and those who are happy that he won, it doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on. It's still one coin. And we still have to figure out how to live together, figure out how to thrive together. And this isn't easy stuff. If it was, I think my wife and I would never fight. But that isn't the way of relationships. And I just think about how Ash and I navigate our relationship so that it can thrive for both of us in a way that then exponentially can work for everyone in our country. And that looks overwhelming to me. And yet, it is the job at hand. It is what we must rise to. There's something so much bigger going on here. It's right there before us in the numbers. There is no mandate here except one of love and right and healing. That's the mandate, not policy by any means. Policy is going to have to be worked out so that those who feel they're not thriving have an opportunity to do so. Let's work together in that. Let's talk to folks in ways really being curious. I, for one, do not feel like I have been curious enough. I've been a little curious. but I don't think I've been curious enough. You're going to have to ask yourself if you have, because that's what this is going to take. A lot of curiosity, a lot of love, and a lot of heart towards healing. One nation under God. Thank you. That's my talk for today. I love you all very much.
God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What I give, I receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am, and so it is.